The boy lay on the ground, his eyes frozen on the sky. His arms were splayed out at his sides, palms up, as if surrendering to the clouds. He wore a faded denim jacket, the cuffs frayed, and his jeans were ripped at the knees. A small, rusty bike lay nearby, its front wheel twisted at an odd angle. The sun beat down on the pavement, casting a golden glow over the scene. A few kids rode by on their own bikes, their laughter and shouts carrying on the breeze. They didn't seem to notice the boy on the ground. Maybe they thought he was just resting, or maybe they thought he was part of the scenery. A few feet away, a broken toy lay in the gutter. It was a plastic robot. Its bright blue body cracked and faded. One glassy eye stared up at the sky, as if watching the clouds drift lazily by. The robot's arm was outstretched, as if beckoning someone to come closer. The boy didn't move. He didn't blink. His chest didn't rise and fall with breath. He simply lay there, a still life on the pavement. The sun continued to shine, and the world went on around him, oblivious to his presence. A fly buzzed lazily around the boy's head, landing briefly on his nose before taking off again. A few strands of his black hair were stuck to his forehead, held in place by a sheen of sweat. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his lips were a faint blue. A crumpled-up candy wrapper lay near his hand, the words "Sour Blast" emblazoned on it in bold red letters. The sweet, tangy smell of the candy still clung to his fingers. His eyes, an unsettling shade of green, stared fixedly at the sky, as if he'd been surprised by something in the clouds. The air was heavy with the scent of fresh-cut grass and blooming flowers, a stark contrast to the stillness of the boy's body. A faint hum of lawnmowers and chirping birds filled the air, a soothing background noise that seemed to underscore the boy's unnatural silence. As the sun continued its lazy arc across the sky, a subtle change crept over the scene. The shadows around the boy's body seemed to deepen, as if darkness was seeping out of the ground itself. The robot's glassy eye seemed to bore into the boy's chest, as if trying to awaken something. The robot's arm, still outstretched, began to quiver ever so slightly, as if an electric current was running through its plastic veins. The boy's own arm, pale and still, seemed to be drawn to the robot's, as if some unseen force was pulling them together. A faint, sweet melody whispered on the breeze, like the echo of a forgotten lullaby. The sound sent a shiver down the spines of the passing kids, but they didn't seem to notice the boy or the robot. They just kept riding, their laughter and shouts growing fainter as they disappeared around the corner. The sun dipped lower, casting a warm orange glow over the scene. The shadows deepened, like dark water lapping at the edges of the pavement. The boy's eyes, still fixed on the sky, seemed to be drinking in the light, as if he was trying to absorb the last rays of the sun. Suddenly, the robot's arm jerked, its plastic fingers flexing as if grasping for something. The boy's arm, still pale and still, began to twitch, as if responding to some hidden signal. The two arms, one plastic and one flesh, seemed to be dancing to some unheard rhythm, their movements slow and jerky. The air was heavy with an unspoken tension, as if the very atmosphere was coiling itself around the boy and the robot. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the pavement, and the sky turned a deep shade of indigo. The boy's eyes, still fixed on the sky, began to flutter, the green irises flickering like candles in the breeze. His chest, once still, began to rise and fall with shallow breaths, as if he was slowly coming back to life. The robot's arm, still grasping for something, seemed to be pulling the boy's arm closer, their fingers intertwining like skeletal branches. The sweet melody grew louder, the notes overlapping in a haunting harmony that sent shivers down the spines of the few passersby who still lingered on the street. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, the boy's eyes snapped into focus, his gaze locking onto the robot's glassy stare. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, their faces inches apart, as if sharing a secret that only they knew. The robot's arm, still clutched in the boy's, began to glow with a faint, otherworldly light, like embers from a long-dead fire. The boy's face, once pale, began to flush with a warm, golden color. As if he was being infused with life from some hidden source, the golden light spread from the boy's face to his arms, his chest, and finally, to his legs, as if he was being remade from the inside out. His eyes, still locked on the robots, seemed to be drinking in the light, his pupils expanding and contracting like black holes. The robot, its plastic body now radiant with an ethereal glow, began to change, its form shifting and flowing like molten metal. Its arm, still clutched in the boy's, seemed to merge with his own, the two limbs blending into a single, glowing entity. The air was filled with an electric charge, the air molecules vibrating like the strings of a harp. The few remaining pedestrians on the street stumbled, their footsteps faltering, as if they were being pulled into some unseen vortex. The boy's body, now aglow with an intense, golden light, began to rise from the ground, his legs straightening as if drawn by an invisible force. The robot, its plastic form now distorted and fluid, seemed to be pouring itself into the boy, their bodies merging into a single, shimmering entity. As the last rays of sunlight faded from the sky, the boy-robot hybrid took its first, faltering steps, its golden form blazing like a miniature sun on the darkening pavement. The hybrid creature's eyes, a fusion of the boy's green and the robot's glassy stare, shone like lanterns in the growing darkness. Its golden form, still pulsing with energy, cast an aura of light around it, illuminating the surrounding streetlights, transforming them into a constellation of twinkling stars. As it moved, its steps awkward and unsure, the pavement beneath its feet began to crack and shimmer, as if the very fabric of reality was being rewritten. The air was filled with an electric hum, like the buzzing of 1,000 invisible wings, as if the creature's awakening had awakened a hidden machinery that underpinned the world. The few remaining bystanders, transfixed by the spectacle, stumbled backward, their eyes wide with wonder and fear. They seemed to be witnessing something that defied the laws of nature, something that challenged the fundamental understanding of what it meant to be alive. The hybrid creature, its golden form still radiant, took another step forward, its eyes fixed on some unseen horizon. Its presence seemed to be warping the world around it, bending the very fabric of reality to its will. As it moved, the night air seemed to ripple and distort, as if the creature's existence was rewriting the rules of the universe.